Okay, part two. Here we go.
Get Floyd again, trying to get him inside. So I take the initiative to be now to take the rear passenger door and become the puller. I never.
Okay, so he says, I take the initiative, meaning I went over there and acted to assist. Instead of I take the initiative to be the puller, I mean, I understand what he's saying. At that point, I saw that the two officers, because of Floyd's active resistance, and he was such a big guy, the officers were unable to control him, even though they had been trying for several minutes, or it seemed like several minutes. So I went around to see if I could assist him, maybe pulling him across or getting him into the vehicle.
Never get a chance to pull him in just because Floyd, they can get Floyd in close enough for me to grab him as he's resisting. So at that point, I determined that I need to go around and just tell him, hey, this is pointless. This is not going to work. He's not going to go in. He's not going to be cooperative. He's already shown it. If we put him in there, he's just going to end up the possibility he might end up hurting himself as banging himself on the windows or kicking out or damaging the squad car. Let's just stop what we're doing and put him on the ground and call for an ambulance.
Okay, so that's a critical thing. He made the decision to put Floyd on the ground. So he was a senior officer of the other two that just got off FTO. I don't know about Officer Siobhan, if he was there. By doing that, he kind of contradicts himself, because later in the video, in his statement, he says, I didn't stop or intervene, or I didn't do my training or whatever. He kind of implies that he didn't take any action because it wasn't his call. They're going to call him on this on a stand and say, you said you didn't do anything because it wasn't your call here. But here, when they were trying to get Floyd in, even though it wasn't your call, you made the determination to pull Floyd out and put him on the ground. Why is it okay for you to make the call to put Floyd on the ground when it's not your call, but when you saw these other guys doing things they shouldn't, you said it wasn't your call, you couldn't intervene? And he's going to have a hard time justifying that if he gets on a stand.
It was obvious.
And that's what these interviews are about. I got you. Let me get you to contradict. Let me get you to say something that I can show you're not consistent. I can use it against you later.
That he was like high on something.
He was obviously high on something. His whole behavior screamed he was on drugs. He was sweating. He was being irrational. He was screaming. He was fighting us. It seemed like he had super strength. Nothing, no matter how hard we tried, we couldn't control him. He was overpowering 2 and 3, 4 officers. It's obviously to me that he was acting consistent with somebody on a stimulant or drugs to where he didn't know what he was doing, or he couldn't cooperate even if he wanted to. So trying to reason with him was unreasonable. It would be better just to hold him until the ambulance there and they could secure him better on the gurney.
Just from my experience, the way he was acting, and the lack of being able to reason with us or even calm down. So as we put him down,
as we put him down, that's going to get somebody to say, put him down like a dog, right? The defense attorney go, you use the term put him down, like you were putting him down like a dog, right? Well, the prosecution will be saying this because they're going after him. You got to pick your words. I mean, I don't have a problem with it. He can change that and go, no, what I meant is we put him down on the ground. Well, that's not what you said. You said put him down, like you were talking about putting down a dog.
He's still struggling, kind of trying to get up and just not relaxing at all.
See, I wouldn't have said he's still struggling, kind of. He's still actively resisting. He's still refusing to follow any of our commands. He hasn't voluntarily complied with anything we've asked him. He's thrown himself out of the car and he's been overpowering the officers. So the best thing for us to do was just to hold him and secure him. He couldn't hurt himself. We didn't have to fight with him and possibly hurt him and do more injury. We got him on the ground. We stabilized him and we tried to keep him as still as possible until the ambulance got there.
And they're trying to get control of his body. So I determined, since I could tell that the 3 officers on the ground were getting tired.
The 3 officers were getting tired. A better statement would be, these officers have now been fighting with him since I've been here. We moved him over the car. He hasn't given up. He seems like he's not getting tired. Yet all the other officers are out of breath. They're panting, and I can tell everyone is tired physically from fighting with this big 6'2", whatever, 240-pound guy under the influence of drugs. Again, paints a clearer picture.
Everyone's breathing hard. So I decided, let's grab a hobble and try to restrain him that way.
Once again, later he's going to say, it's not my call, I couldn't do nothing. Here, he's already determined he can pull him out. Now he decides to get a hobble. Now a hobble, I did a video on it. It's basically a cord with 2 snaps on it, and you can tie their feet together, and then you hook that into the handcuffs. So they can't get up, they can't run, they can't do any damage. The more they struggle, their feet pull on their handcuffs pull on their feet, and it keeps them in a prone position to where they can't fight you and they can't hurt you. It just makes it easier on officers to where you don't have officers jumping and leaning and getting pushed off a leg or getting scuffed up or trying to stay on. They can't, and he's bucking. You know what? Put a hobble on him and he fights against himself. Let him fight against himself. He'll wear himself out.
So I go in the back of the SWAT 320 and this whole time trying to communicate with 320, trying to figure out where their hobble is, because I have no idea where it is.
I carried a hobble on me. Evidently, it sounds like they must keep a hobble in the car.
Because I'm the only available hands that can do that. So I end up finding...
Now, they're going to ask him, you're the only available hands. Why did you leave Floyd, who you keep saying was fighting, and you had officers that couldn't control him? Why did you leave him if you were the only available hands? And his answer should be, because I could tell they were getting tired, and the few seconds it took me to grab a hobble, I know would be better for Floyd and the officers if I could get it on him quickly.
The hobble, I think it was, I believe, Officer Lane's bag. And
everybody probably knows what a hobble is except the FBI guy. He's pretty much like, wow, man, he's using all these terms that real police use, and I'm just kind of used to sitting around, you know, dropping my gun at dance clubs and shooting people accidentally and whatever. Complaining the car's too hot. Rick, why are you picking on the FBI? Whatever, I just had to throw something in there.
I handed it to one of the officers. But then, at that time, several minutes had gone by, and I already know an ambulance on the way.
He already knows the ambulance is on the way.
Communicated with them to figure out if a ambulance is on the way, and I asked Officer Lane, hey, just to verify, do you guys have an ambulance on the way? Yes, code 2, and the situation where the crowd was starting to kind of gather up, and especially in that area where it's hostile police.
Okay, so he kind of downplays that a little bit. Yeah, especially, the crowd was starting to gather and they're hostile to police. No. We were already tired from fighting this guy. There was 4 officers. He was uncooperative. We were trying to restrain him. We still haven't even secured the car where there's possible drugs or other counterfeit money. There's still 2 other people that were in the car that we couldn't control. And now we have a crowd gathering in a hostile area that we know is hostile and is highly controlled by the gang members. And now they're gathering and we're getting outnumbered. This situation is rapidly escalating and we are losing control. And I thought the best thing was to keep Floyd on the ground. That way at least we could look around, we could protect our weapon, we weren't fighting with the crowd, and we could try to just stabilize the situation until the ambulance showed up and they could secure him, and then we could deal with the crowd. Sounds better to me.
And the way Floyd is acting, I went on the radio and told dispatch that we needed the ambulance here, code 3, emergency lights and sirens.
So he upgraded the ambulance. Because of Floyd's constant resistance and it wasn't getting any better, the ambulance was responding code 2, which is just lights, which is a slower response. I upgraded him to code 3 because I saw that this situation was rapidly deteriorating and we were losing control and we needed him here yesterday. So, again, to me that sounds a little better.
Since the ambulance is already on the way, we decided to just forego the hobble and just hold for now, since because if we were to hobble him, once the ambulance arrived, we would have to undo it.
Okay, to me, the way he's articulating this, it shows that there is a thought process to what they were doing. I don't know if that's really what they were thinking, but it's hard to prove what you were thinking and what you weren't. But it sounds like they were going through methodical things like, okay, let's get him on the ground because we don't want him to hurt himself in the car, and let's hold him here. Well, let's try and hobble him. You know what? By the time we hobble him, if the ambulance is going to get here in a minute or two, they're only a couple minutes out, we're just going to have to unhobble him. You know what? Instead of trying to get the hobbles on and having to take them off, let's just hold him where we're at. We seem to be pretty stable. Let's do that. So it sounds like they were being reasonable, and the actions they were taking were well thought out and planned and coordinated, and it wasn't just sporadic like we were out there beating up a black guy because we didn't have anything else better to do.
Again, to put him onto the stretcher. As a waiting for ambulance, I'd take position kind of as a human traffic cone. Blade
As a human traffic cone. He said cone. He got his cone. He's a human. And he did kind of do that. He just put himself as a barrier. He basically set up a perimeter. He was a security perimeter, and he put himself between the hostile, aggressive crowd and between the officers that were fighting with a hostile, aggressive Floyd. And I put myself in between them so they couldn't attack the officers and possibly assist in aiding in the escape of Floyd or getting officers' gun, etc.
It off a bit. It's just so oncoming traffic northbound Chicago kind of see me, so the vehicle doesn't hit my partners and Floyd because they're low to the ground. So I wanted to get myself off the traffic, offset myself off the traffic a little bit. And also be able to be in view of the growing.
You notice this detective is nodding his head in agreement and saying, yeah, I understand. I got it. This is what we want when we want people to keep talking. Keep telling us your story. We're going to pick it apart afterwards and we're going to lock you down, but we want you to get something in your own words so later when we use it against you, you can't say you tricked me, or you asked the question wrong, or you led me to that thing and I wouldn't have said that had you not. I've let you tell your story in your own words and I've nodded in agreement in order to keep you talking, because the more you say, the more I can pick it apart and lock you down.
Crowd. So I just kind of so the rest of the time I'm just kind of focusing on traffic and the crowd. That's what I felt my job was at the time, is crowd control and make sure my guys don't get run over. As the crowd is starting to grow and become loud and hostile towards us, I decided that to forego traffic and put myself in between the crowd and the officers and turned off looking at just spending.
So, officer, a few minutes ago you said you were protecting the officers because they were low to the ground. You didn't want them to get run over. And now you're going to abandon them and go to the traffic. Did you not care at this point whether the officer and the suspect got run over? Is that why you went to the crowd? This is how they turn things and they manipulate and they use things that you say out of context, or they ask what sounds like a reasonable question and you got to answer it and kind of dig your way out. And then you end up saying something you shouldn't, or you try to justify it, or you feel stupid, so you try to elaborate, and then when you elaborate, you say something else stupid that you shouldn't say, and it goes on.
Majority of my attention looking at the crowd, make sure they don't charge us or bull rush us, as the officers on the ground are defenseless.
Make sure they don't charge us or bull rush us. What does that mean to the jury? If you're on a jury, you've never been a cop, what does that mean? Charge us and bull rush us. What does that mean? I want to make sure the crowd doesn't charge us or bull rush us. And when I say that, I mean charge us by sometimes when the crowd gets aggressive and we're not paying attention and they see that we're outnumbered, they will come in and start pulling us off, grabbing our weapon, trying to take our weapons, throwing things at us, etc. And it puts officers more in danger. So I didn't want them to get close enough, and I was using myself as a barrier to keep them, and hopefully my presence was going to make them know that we're ready and they shouldn't do that. I wanted to prevent this situation from escalating. Unfortunately, when my attention was on the crowd, I could not watch what the officers were doing or what Floyd was doing, so I don't know a whole lot what was happening behind me.
Um, the eventually EMS arrives, the paramedics arrive, and they board they load in Floyd.
They board him is a common term when they board an injured suspect at a car accident. He needs to be boarded. That basically means protect the spine, get a board underneath him so we can pick it up, we can strap him down, whatever. He's using that term, they board him. And the cops may know, but when a jury listens to this, they may go, what's he talking about, boarding? And then somebody will have to explain it, and they may explain it wrong. They may go, oh, I think that means like waterboarding. No! It means they put him on a backboard to protect his neck and spinal and neck injuries. But it depends who's explaining it. Someone else would be like, no, man, that's those cops being aggressive. When they go board him, they're talking about waterboard him. They're going to take him down and water. I mean, it's just crazy how your words can get twisted around, which is why you need to pick them carefully and articulate and explain everything you say so everybody is clear.
So I didn't see when they loaded him, but I was kind of focused on the crowd at that moment. So Officer shot and kind of tapped me and, hey, let's go, we're done. So that's when we left that original Squad 320 and went across the street.
Now, if I was questioning this guy, I'd be, officer, are you saying that your fear and focus was so much that you were so worried about the crowd, that you were so focused on the crowd, you didn't even see when they put Floyd on the board or loaded him? You had to have another officer tap you on the back? And if he says yes, that's really good, because that means his fear was reasonable and it was real. He was so focused on them that he didn't even know the ambulance had loaded and had put Floyd in the ambulance. He was still focused and worried about his safety, and the officers focused on the crowd. He didn't even know what was happening behind him. That helps him when they go, why didn't you stop Officer Chauvin from leaning on his neck? I didn't even see it. I didn't realize what was going on. I was focused on the crowd. That will help him, and it'll allow his attorney to articulate, to show that what he said was reasonable and accurate.
To check on Officer Ching, since he was outnumbered. That right there is pretty much essentially what he pretty much done with any contact with Floyd.
Okay, so he kind of ends his statement there, which is good. He probably should have ended earlier, but guess what the good interviewer is going to do? Same thing the lawyers do when you're on the stand. And officer, what happened next? And they get you to keep talking.
Okay. What happened though after that? When you went over and saw Officer Chang, what happened from there?
Trying to figure out what exactly are we going to do with this car. What? Because me and Officer Chauvin are the backup officer. We have no idea what's going on as far as this got detained or whatnot. We're acting in good faith with
Okay, so he throws in, we're acting in good faith, and we don't know if he's detained. So that was a cover your butt move. He said, we don't really know what's going on. So you're saying you went to a call that you don't know what's going on? And then he covered it, we're acting in good faith. Good faith means you're not acting malicious and you're doing things that are reasonable. And in this case, he's using that term as when the officer called for help and we showed up and we saw a hostile crowd and we saw him fighting with somebody, we just assume that it was a lawful arrest, that the officers knew something we didn't. We don't know what happened before. All we know is we have to react and respond to what's happening now to keep the officer and the scene as safe as we can. We don't have time to sit around and go, why are you arresting him? Why do you have your knee on him? Why is he handcuffed? Are you sure you have probable cause to arrest him? Is he really the suspect or is there someone else? We don't have time to do that because this situation was so fluid and actively going on and moving and advancing so quickly because of Floyd's aggressive and active resistance and because of the growing crowd in this hostile neighborhood. We didn't have time to talk about whether the arrest was valid or good. That's what I meant by we didn't know what was going on. He's going to have to clear that up because they're going to try and use it against him.
SWAT 320 and 830, because we're the last ones there. So as we're trying to figure out what's going to happen next, because this is 320's call, it's their call what they want to do with a vehicle.
Again, who's ever the primary, they make the decisions. Do they want to tow it? Do they want to park it? Do they want to impound it for evidence? Have they searched it? Do they want to search it? Do they have PC to search it? Do they want someone else to search it? Is there possible evidence in there? Should we secure this vehicle and tow it anyway? If I have to arrest you, I normally towed your vehicle. I mean, I didn't. If I was forced to arrest you, you were a criminal doing something pretty serious, because I didn't arrest you for freaking littering. Okay, I didn't mess with littering or freaking traffic tickets. So if I arrested you, your car was pretty much getting towed. And by towing it, it does a couple things. One, it allows me to do an inventory search, which means I don't need probable cause, I don't need a warrant, I don't need anything. Because I'm doing an inventory search, I can look for what's in a car, any valuables, any damage. I have to annotate that on the tow form, and therefore I get to search your vehicle legally because I'm towing it. Now, anything I find, because it's a legal search, I get to keep. So the defense can't suppress my search and say, you didn't have probable cause, search his car. You're right. I didn't search it with probable cause. I searched it because I towed it. And when I tow it, I'm required to do an inventory search of the car to determine if there's anything in there of value and anything damaged. So therefore, the tow company is responsible and I'm not responsible. And therefore, the search was legal. And when I'm searching legally, anything I find, I can seize. So go ahead, defense attorney, and scream about your no probable cause and my search was unlawful. But I got the evidence lawfully because I was doing a lawful inventory, and I get to keep it and use it. And you can go ahead and cry to somebody who cares, because I don't. All right?
We're just backing up. So 320, I guess, Officer King said that at some point, well, I guess let me backtrack a little bit here. As I'm trying to figure out with Chang what we're going to do, we just kind of sit by, and then the fire department shows up. At that time, I don't know what...
And then the big red truck came. The banana peel was in the road, and they had to block the traffic. So he says, I don't even know why they showed up. But they showed up. I know why they showed up. Because they're sitting around a fire truck, and they got to justify more fire engines and more trucks and more budgets because they went out on a lot of useless calls. That's why they're there.
What the status of Floyd is. Fire department shows up, and they ask us, what do we need? And I'm kind of baffled, like, we just need an ambulance. I don't know what you guys are here for. I assume that was unrelated to us, maybe with the medical inside to cut food or something, because the fire department went inside to go check. As they're checking, dispatch asks us, tells us that the fire department is looking for the ambulance.
So I'm not a fireman. Why would the fire department be looking for the ambulance? Are they like the lead investigator when somebody dies, or does the ambulance call? I mean, why would the fire department show up and be looking for the ambulance? My guess is, in order to get the stat and to get more money, they have to make contact with the ambulance to say that they were there and they assisted. And they can't say they assisted unless they make contact with the ambulance. That's my guess. I could be wrong.
Walked up to the fire engine and told the driver, the driver, I believe, like, hey, the dispatch says you guys need to go to 36 and Park. They're doing CPR. And that's when the fire guys come back. I kind of tell them the same thing. They end up getting back on and then heading to 36 and Park to assist with the ambulance. End up going back to the Officer Chang, and he ends up clearing us. I tell him, hey, basically, it looks like this guy is being worked on, so this could potentially be a critical incident if he dies.
Okay, so this is kind of an important statement that he volunteers here. He's thinking ahead that this could be a critical incident. If it's a critical incident, I'm sure there's policy and things that get triggered and certain things you have to do certain ways, and interviews and securing the scene and towing vehicles and searching and who you can talk to and how's your body cam secured. And there's all kind of things, I'm sure, when something's listed as a critical incident. I'm assuming a critical incident means someone dies. So he says this could be a critical incident if he dies. That triggers some things, and it also shows his state of mind that he thinks Floyd might die. Why does he think that? And that's going to be a huge exploratory question. Why did you think this was going to turn into a critical incident? What led you to believe that Floyd might die? Did you think it was because Siobhan had his knee on his neck? No. I thought he might die because they were doing CPR when they load him in. So normally they don't do CPR on people that are breathing. So anytime somebody starts CPR, I think there's a chance that somebody had heart failure or an OD, or they took too many drugs, or they fought too much, or there's a lot of reasons. But one reason for sure they do CPR is the person stops breathing or his heart stops. So that usually means the person could die. That's why I thought that. And that's how he's going to have to explain this, because they're going to try and turn it around. You thought he was going to die because you saw the officers on him. They held him down. You knew that they shouldn't have let him up. You knew that he shouldn't have been on his neck. That's why you thought he was going to die, isn't it, officer? And he'll be like, no, it was because they were doing CPR.
I don't know his status, but they're doing CPR. So just make sure to do a report if anything comes, supplement or whatever.
So it sounds like he's talking to the two rookie guys saying, look, you're new. You may have not been in very critical incidents. When there's a critical incident, make sure you do a report. Don't blow this off like you normally do. Don't try and dodge this report. Write down what you did and how it did, because when it's a critical incident, shit's going to hit the fan and we're all going to get questions. So you better take good notes and have your supplements. So he's thinking ahead, which is good. But it also shows that he's pretty competent and he's got some experience. And if he has this experience and he's that competent, why didn't he say, get your knee off the guy's neck? It's been on too long. I don't think he even saw his neck. He was messing with the crowd.
Anything changes, I'll let you know. I think he ticks off. Lane, I think, later on, I believe he went to ambulance with. Went into ambulance with Floyd. So it left Oscar King there with us. And then we're trying, I guess we talked to him about what you want to do with the vehicle. Or actually, he's telling us that, well, he started proceeding to tell me, like, kind of like this vehicle is leaving park. We're just going to take the keys for safekeeping and leave it here. And
okay, so it sounds like somebody made a decision to leave the vehicle. I would have never left that vehicle. I don't even care if they weren't doing CPR. This dude fought with us. He was committing a crime. We didn't search it. There could be other counterfeit. There could be weapons. There could be drugs in the car. He was fighting us getting out of the car. There were 3 people in the car. I ain't leaving that car. That car is getting towed and searched, and the 2 people in the car, if I find dope under the passenger seat, the passenger that got out of that seat's going to get charged. And I'm going to try to get her prints on the packaging that I got under the front seat. And if there's a weapon in the back, the guy in the back seat's going to get fingerprinted, and I'm going to find out if his prints are on that gun. So to me, it's very, very sloppy police work not to tow that car when you've got it used in a criminal crime. It was used in several crimes. It transported him there. It transported him there in a conspiracy, because we had a conspiracy because the woman went in and tried to pass the bill first. Then she came out, and then Floyd went in and tried to pass it. So they know that they're trying to pass counterfeit. Therefore, you have a conspiracy. The car was used to transport him there as part of that crime. It needs to be impounded for evidence. And there's probably other evidence in there that'll make your case stronger. So, and Floyd was trying to drive away because he was under the influence of drugs and he had no damn business driving. So the car should have been towed when they charged him with trying or attempting or drunk driving, because the keys were in the car. Technically, he was driving. He drove there. He was under the influence. So he should have been hooked for DUI, and the car should have been towed for DUI. Now you have a guy who's on the ground getting CPR and may die, and it may turn into a critical incident. and they decide not to tow the car, leave it there parked. That's lazy. That's unprofessional. It shows that they're not thinking ahead. That was a clusterfuck in my book. Oh, we're at 30 minutes. Let me go to part 3. All right, we're ending part 2 here.